From the British Raj to Amrit Kal, we're talking about two different worlds connected by cricket. The world has changed and cricket has changed. What sort of parallels and divergences do you see?
Right, well, thank you, Baki, for that introduction. And can I say, first of all, it's a great pleasure to be here again. Great pleasure to be with my good friend, Jay Shankar, some of whom I have enormous respect, and to see Kevin again after quite a long time. The last time I saw him was when I welcomed him and the English team into Downing Street after they won the Ashes in 2005, yep. Where I just said to Kevin, he was easily the most sober person in that team.
The best actor.
That's what it was. So look, I think the change that's happening in the world today is, people talk about whether power's shifting east. I think it's not so much shifting as today power is going to be shared. Right? There is no doubt that the rise of China, the rise of India now has changed geopolitics. You've got Indonesia now becoming an increasingly powerful country. I think the Philippines is going to make great strides. Vietnam, its economy has surged enormously over these past years. So I think we are definitely in a new era. But I think there are several things that are interesting about it that need reflecting. It's true that the great geopolitical competition will probably revolve around the relationship between the United States and China. But here's the thing which is interesting. I think over the last 2 years, under President Biden, and I'm not sure everyone in America sees it this way, but this is how I see it as an outsider. America has reemerged as the strongest power in the world by a long way, both by dint of its economy, its military, its resources, its technology. As China has faltered over the COVID policy and, frankly, over aspects of its economic policy, I think America's dominance is very clear. That's the first thing. The second thing is that although the East is much more powerful, which is why I say for sure power is to a degree shifted but has still got to be shared, whilst it's clear that the East is very strong, it's not just America that is strong, Europe is still strong. It's still the largest commercial market in the world. I think the conflict in Ukraine has seen Europe and NATO regain some of its momentum and its purpose, and the UK to a degree too as an ally. And so I think the real challenge today is how you make sense of this shifting geopolitics. And in that, I think the position of India is absolutely critical, because the progress of India in these last years has been remarkable and extraordinary. And I think the position of India now, this is again my view as an outsider, is potentially more powerful than it's ever been. With the G20, this is in a way a demonstration of its authority on the global stage. But increasingly around the world, when countries are worried about whether they have to choose between the USA and China, I think India is a country seen by many as an objective friend. And I think it's got the opportunity now to lead the global south in a way that's never been true before.
But your point of power being shared and not shifted so much, is the West prepared to share that power? Because I do not see a lot of enthusiasm on United Nations Security Council reform to start with.
Yeah, but the West has got no option. And the trouble with the UN Security Council reform, which of course should happen, I mean, it's absurd that you've got a situation where India is not a permanent member, but you could say that about other countries as well. But leave aside that, because the problem always with reforming the UN Security Council is how do you get consensus? But the West has got no option but to share the power. The question is how you make sense of international diplomacy in this new world.
How does it sort of impact leadership when you have to respond to the persistent questioning and demands of the millions on your feed and the billions on the street?
Yeah, so I'm glad you didn't ask me to comment on the cricket, since I've been out of my depth on that one. And by the way, you did ask, actually, and I didn't respond about the UK-India relationship. It's a great relationship for the future today. And although he's not in my politics, there's a guy in Downing Street today that I think has some Indian connection. So that's a demonstration, by the way, I hope, of the open-mindedness of my country as well, which is a good thing to say. So you asked about leadership. Look, the thing about leadership in an era of social media is it's just got a lot more tough. Okay, because the thing about social media is it's frankly a plague on politics, really, because it's the platform for the loudmouth. I mean, in the end, I'm going to offend some people here, but I'm sorry, but the fact is, one of the first lessons of leadership is to understand that those that shout loudest don't deserve to be heard most. Right? Unfortunately, social media, that's where they're shouting loudest. And so leadership's been the same since time immemorial. Leaders step up when others step back. Leaders are prepared to take responsibility and take decisions. And most of all, leaders know that criticism comes with the job. You know, I always say to people, if you don't want criticism, don't become a leader. And, you know, I used to, sometimes I would complain to, you know, when I go in the flat upstairs from Downing Street and the media having a real go at me and things were a bit chaotic, let's say, you know, I'd shut the door of the flat and I'd sit down at the kitchen table and I'd start complaining. And my wife would always say to me, "Stop whinging, it's voluntary." And, you know, she was right. I mean, you know, no one told you to go and become a leader. But if you're going to become a leader, understand that the essence of leadership is taking responsibility and being able to face the criticism. And there's one other thing, by the way, that good leaders do, and here I think cricket is a useful analogy. A good leader picks a good team. There you are.
Absolutely.
The negative side of technology, and you know, technology does have its negative side. The thing I'd like to say, though, is technology has its positive side. I mean, we're living through a 21st century technology revolution that's every bit as revolutionary as the 19th century industrial revolution, and it's going to change everything. And basically, one of the great challenges of leadership today in politics is how do you harness the opportunities of that technology revolution? Because AI, cloud computing, bioscience, everything is going to change. The way we live, the way we work, the way we think and interact with each other. And the biggest challenge, in my view, is that the policymakers and the change makers are often in two different rooms not talking to each other. And they need to talk to each other. And the problem, when you're from an older generation, I'm definitely from the older generation, is that, you know, technology's tough. I mean, I had to speak at a conference the other day on cryptocurrency. So, you know, I talked to my eldest son who's got a technology company about it, and he tried to explain cryptocurrency, and finally he sent me this thing called The Idiot's Guide to Cryptocurrency. And I didn't understand it. So, and then on the eve of the speech, I phoned him up and said, "Look, I'm about to address these people in half an hour. What on earth do I tell them?" He said, "Tell them you're sick." Make up any excuse, but you're not fit for this, Dad. Believe me. But the point is, it is confusing, and it isn't, in one sense, frightening. Kevin's absolutely right. You know, you're bringing up children in a completely new world where they're subject to all sorts of influences and so on. But this technology revolution is central, and it's one of the reasons why India's done so well in these last years. Because I think, you know, Prime Minister Modi has understood the importance of it, and your digital ID program, I think it's one of the most important programs. I keep saying to people around the world, if you want to see an example of a reform that leads to real results and shows that government can work for people, look at India's digital ID program. It's been a remarkable transformation. And, you know, that's where, by the way, if you want to help some of the poorest countries in the world today, I think a lot of the poorest countries in the world, if they embrace technology in the right way with the right help, they don't have to replicate the legacy systems of developed countries. They can actually, in health, in education, and in the role government plays, they can bypass all of that. So technology, yep, it's got its downsides, but it's a fact, and if we understand it and we master it properly, we can make it work for people.